evening. The Supreme Court finds presidential anti-poverty czar Larry Gadon guilty of gross misconduct for lying under oath. The case stems from the instance where he filed an impeachment complaint against former Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. In his complaint filed before the House of Representatives, Gadon accused Sereno of falsifying a Supreme Court temporary restraining order without any evidence. The High Court says Gadon knew that he had no personal knowledge or any authentic document to support his allegation against Sereno, but still included it in his verified impeachment complaint. The Supreme Court further says Gadon not only deceived the House of Representatives, but also revealed an intent to inflict unnecessary harm to the reputation of a lawyer and former member of the court. According to the court, these confirm Gadon's malicious intent to malign and defame Sereno. It adds that Gadon's actions showed his disrespect for the impeachment process, using it to advance his personal agenda rather than air genuine and legitimate grievances. Gadon violated Canon 2, Section 11 of the Code of Professional Responsibility and Accountability, which prohibits lawyers from making false statements. This makes him liable for gross misconduct, which is a serious offense. The Integrated Bar of the Philippines recommended a 3-year suspension, but the Supreme Court says gross misconduct is punishable by disbarment. But since Gadon was already disbarred, the court imposed a 150,000 peso fine. Meanwhile, Gadon dismisses the Supreme Court's decision, saying that most successful and wealthy people are not lawyers anyway. However, he finds the 150,000 peso fine excessive. Gadon also claims that Justice Senior Associate Justice Marvic Leonin had a hand in the resolution. Newly installed Senate President Cheese Escudero says the upper chamber will no longer waste time on measures that would not get its approval anyway. In a kapihan sa Senado forum, Escudero was asked about the new leadership's priority measures when the third regular session of Congress resumes in July. But for now, Escudero says he could not say yet which measures are pending assessment.
Kung may priority measure na hindi naman papasa sa Senado, hindi na namin pag-aaksayan ng panahon at sasabihin namin sa Malacanang. Sayang na naman ang igugugol na oras din eh.
Escudero does not elaborate on what a specific measure the Senate would supposedly not waste time on. But when asked if this includes the proposed measures pushing for charter change, he says it was possible. Emphasizing his 14 years of experience as a lawmaker, Escudero says he is well-versed when it comes to determining whether or not a bill would conveniently hurdle Congress.
14 na taon na ako nasa Kongreso. Alam at kabisado ko na halos kung paano magpasa at hindi magpasa at kung anong mahihirapang ipasa at madaling ipasa na panukalang batas.
Despite his stand on divorce, newly installed Senate President Francis Escudero says the upper chamber would decide on the matter based on conscience and personal beliefs. Even in the past, Escudero has expressed his leaning toward a more affordable and accessible annulment in the country than divorce. Under his leadership, however, he expects the Senate to vote on the proposed measure based on conscience and personal beliefs. According to Escudero, he has no intention of leaning in favor or against the measure.
Ang posisyon ko kaugnay ng divorce ay conscience at personal vote to. Walang party, walang majority or minority stand dito. Personal na desisyon base sa kanilang paniniwala at relihiyon ang mangyayari dyan sa kada senador. At bilang tagapangulo ng Senado, wala akong balak dumiin, pabor o kontra dito.
Escudero insists that making annulment more affordable and accessible is still a better choice than allowing divorce as approved by the House of Representatives, believing that this could be done by letting the Public Attorney's Office handle marriage annulment cases. On Wednesday, the House said 126 members voted to approve the proposed law on divorce, while 109 voted against it as 20 abstained from voting. The following day, however, the House clarified that 131 voted in favor of the measure after former Senate President Vicente Soto III questioned its approval. According to Soto, the divorce bill did not get the required approval vote based on parliamentary rules that a majority of the quorum is needed to pass a bill. A simple majority would have been 127 or 128 of the 255 House members present during the voting. In the upper chamber, the Senate Committee on Women already approved a counterpart divorce bill, but it has yet to be reported out to the Senate plenary. Senator J.V. Ejercito believes somebody higher than the Senate might have influenced his colleagues to replace former Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri. In a television interview on Thursday, May 23, Ejercito pieces together the issues that later led to Zubiri's ouster. According to Ejercito, the coup rumor started last January when the Senate and the House traded barbs over the controversial People's Initiative for Charter Change, allegedly initiated by the lower chamber. He says it died down a bit, but it was revived during the probe into the alleged Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency leaked documents led by Senator Bato de la Rosa. 2 days before Zubiri was removed from his post, Ejercito says they were still confident that they have the support of the majority of 24 senators. But suddenly, he says the tides changed. Ejercito says he believes there were external forces that influenced the senators, who he deemed were satisfied with Zubiri at the time. He speculates it must be somebody higher than the Senate to have influenced the senator's supposed change of heart. Ejercito's half-brother, Senate President pro tempore Jinggoy Estrada, already denied the Senate leadership was influenced by outside forces. Earlier, Escudero also admitted initiating the ouster move against Zubiri. While the Liberal Party and the coalition President Bongbong Marcos forged may carry different political principles, Albay 1st District Representative Edsel Lagman is not ruling out any possible partnerships for the 2025 midterm polls. In a press briefing at the Batasang Pambansa complex, Lagman was asked about the Liberal Party's plans for the 2025 elections. Lagman serves as Liberal Party's incumbent president. In response, Lagman says they have started partnering with political groups with similar ideologies. According to Lagman, options are available on the probability of an alliance with Marcos's Partido Federal ng Pilipinas and House of Representatives Speaker Martin Romualdez's Lakas CMD. Lagman says this is despite different sets of principles. The Liberal Party has been critical of Marcos's candidacy in 2022 as it actively campaigned against the Marcos' return to power. In 2022, the party supported the presidential bid of former Vice President Leni Robredo, who placed second behind Marcos. It is unclear what the Liberal Party plans to do in 2025, but Lagman says they will put up senatorial candidates, although the slate might not be complete. Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos has been reassigned to the military's general headquarters in Camp Aguinaldo after being relieved of his duties as Chief of Armed Forces of the Philippines Western Command. In a press conference, AFP Public Affairs Chief Colonel Cerces Trinidad says Carlos will be under the guidance of the Office of the Chief of Staff at the headquarters in Quezon City. According to AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, Carlos's reassignment to the General Headquarters Support Command is not a punitive action against the Vice Admiral. Controversy hounded Carlos after the Chinese embassy presented a supposed transcript of an allegedly wiretapped conversation between him and a Chinese diplomat regarding its supposed new model deal for Ayungin Shoal. Carlos was removed as Chief of Westcom after the Chinese embassy's revelation. In a Senate hearing on Wednesday, May 22, Carlos confirmed that a phone conversation took place but denied it had anything to do with a new model in Ayungin Shoal, as claimed by China. He also said he did not consent to being recorded during the conversation. Republic Act No. 4200 prohibits recording any private conversation without the consent of all parties. Here's the latest roundup of today's top stories. Supreme Court finds presidential anti-poverty czar Larry Gadon guilty of gross misconduct for lying under oath in Sereno impeachment case. Senate President Francis Escudero set to meet with Speaker Martin Romualdez to mend Senate and House ties. And the low-pressure area east of Mindanao enters PAR and may develop into tropical depression. These are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.